Laura MacDonald. She's the immediate past chair of the Giving USA Foundation and currently the principal and founder of the fundraising consulting firm, Benefactor Group. Welcome to the show. Good to have you. I love this topic because we have a lot of problems in the world, and ultimately you see giving by companies, giving by governments, but people are one of the biggest givers, if not the biggest givers overall around the world, and where they put their money says a lot about what they care about. So let me ask you this, where are they putting their money this year? What are the big causes?
Well, traditionally, the biggest cause has been religion. So if somebody is part of a house of worship of any faith, it's likely that most of their giving is going to or through that house of worship. But after that come a variety of causes that are close to the hearts of people. Education, in America at least, comes in second as the recipient of charitable gifts. But I think what's interesting is that, causes of all kinds have begun to really gain traction with donors and be popular. I think the main thing is that it's something that touches the heart of a donor and then does great things with the money and shares that back with the donor so that they're encouraged to give again.
Oftentimes, people see things on television or on the news and they say to themselves, gosh, that's a terrible situation. I really wish there was something I could do to help. And I'll just use Ukraine as an example, right? You see the people without power, without electricity, and you say to yourself, how do I help these families and their kids? And I say, I want to give, but I don't know where to give or how to give. I want to make sure the money actually gets to the organization, that actually gets to the people to help. You don't want to be scammed. You want to actually give money. How does one go about doing something like that?
Well, I think a couple of things. There are a handful of resources that you can use to vet charities and to make sure that the funds are actually being used for the purposes that are intended. I would say one is Candid. The website is guidestar.org. Another is Charity Navigator. ProPublica has a good portal to take a look at what that charity is doing. I would say then take a look at the impact, visit the website of that charity, take a look at their financial reports. I would discourage you from looking at simply the overhead. That's a bit of a myth. And frankly, it's a number that can be manipulated by the organization. Focus instead on the impact. Are they really having an impact where I hope they will? And if that's the case, then I would encourage you to lean in. Give not just this year, but next year and the year after, if you feel like they're doing good things with your money. Like any other business model, donor acquisition is very expensive. Be loyal.
Our family has a strong history of donating money to various causes, and many of these causes typically have what they call an annual fundraiser, where everybody gets together, there's a speaker, and they auction off a Christmas tree or something, and everyone gives money, and that's typically how many of these organizations make a lot of money, especially smaller ones. And because of COVID, they weren't able to have these events, they weren't able to have these fundraisers, and so for a lot of nonprofits that we have supported in the past, they really are struggling in terms of there's a big hole that they have not been able to fill yet. Have you noticed from the folks that you're talking to how they're strategizing to fix these holes or to replace the funds that have been lost because of COVID?
We see a handful of things. One is that they can no longer, during the COVID years, they couldn't have the big galas, but they moved to online fundraisers, and they might not have grossed as much, but frankly, their expenses were a lot lower, so their net, in many instances, was even higher. So in that way, COVID may have shown them a way to increase the efficiency of some of their fundraising. So I think that's helpful. The other thing we saw is that during the COVID years, I think there's a universal impulse to generosity. And that was really shown from 19 to 20 and from 20 to 21. We saw a real outpouring of generosity. The percentage of households that gave increased, and particularly those that gave to basic needs or to causes, humanitarian causes, some advocacy causes increase. And so we saw that many organizations actually sustained that well. Now their challenge is to retain the relationships with donors that they might have developed.
Very quickly, Laura, last question. The economy is a bit dicey for a lot of people. They may not be able to give as much as maybe they did before, but they could give other things, for example, their time, right?
Right. Time, talent, treasure, testimony, and ties. So, talent, are there things that you can do, even as simple as going to your local animal shelter and walking a dog? Testimony, can you elevate and amplify their message on social media? Ties, can you introduce them to some of your friends who are like-minded and maybe you can't give $250 this year, but you can give 100 and another friend can give 100 and a third friend can give 100. So I think about all 5 T's.